Today's episode is not about scams, but we are going to be talking about some deals that may as well be scams. These are examples of companies that so overprice what they're selling that it's kind of astounding. And we're going to be talking about something that happened to me just recently with my local car dealership on today's episode. Hey, my name's Blake Binns. I'm the host of the Good Advice Podcast, and you've come to the right place to learn how to do business better. We don't talk theory or random ideas on the show. It's just the stuff that actually works to grow your business. And hey, if you are a business and you're looking to advertise on the show, you can always reach out, Blake at goodadvicecoaching.com, or you can check out our Patreon, patreon.com/goodadvice, where you can support the podcast for as little as the price of a cup of coffee. All that to say, here's a quick ad, and we'll be back soon. There's one single piece of advice that I give to business owners who are ready to scale their business drastically. And that's knowing exactly what you need to hand off so that you can continue focusing on what you're an expert in. It amazes me when I talk to business owners who are doing their own bookkeeping and tax prep, and worse, that they're going through all this paperwork at 10 o'clock, 11 o'clock, even midnight, slaving away trying to make sense of all of the numbers for their business. Business owners who are making it happen have already figured out that you can't do it all yourself. That's why I recommend Steve Lay with Equity Business Solutions. Not only is he an expert in bookkeeping and tax prep, but what I love about Steve is that he'll sit down with you and help you make sense of the value of your business beyond just reading a spreadsheet. You'll be able to make better decisions, and more importantly, you're going to save yourself the crucial time you would have spent going through QuickBooks or an Excel spreadsheet or whatever it is that keeps us up late at night. So save yourself some time and some money by giving Steve Lay a call at Equity Business Solutions, and he'll show you the value beyond your numbers. Go to equitybusinesssolutionsllc.com to find out more. So I want to talk about something that happened to me I guess about 2 weeks ago. And unfortunately, being in business for 7 years now, I've had instances like this that, I mean, we can all think of those situations where you walk away from an experience where you spent money and you're like, wow, I will never spend my money there again. You know, we've all had different experiences where it's like not a great experience, where it's like, that was a little pricey or the value wasn't quite there. And then you have experiences where you're just like, dude, what happened here? What's going on here? Like, this is wild to me. And I shared about one of these 2 years ago, maybe. And it was a post that was called the $5,000 wire. This post blew up, by the way. I mean, it had something like 250,000 impressions, had hundreds of comments on it. And essentially the whole premise of that post was, my dishwasher had broke. I called what seemed like a very popular local electrician company. Somebody came out. It took a while to look at it, and eventually, looked around the house and came back and said, "Hey, to fix it, it's going to be $5,000," which is is just why. Let's just see, man. What does a dishwasher cost these days? I mean, yeah, you're gonna buy a great dishwasher for $500. You know, if you want top of the line insane, I guess about $800. But it looks like most of these on Amazon are about $300, $400. So this guy quotes me the cost of a dishwasher repair as $5,000. And I'm just aghast by it. I'm just like, what? Like, why? Why is it so much? And he was like, well, we got to fix the dishwasher. We got to take it apart. But also, some of your outlets are not safe. They're not, what is it? GFCI? Is that right? But they say, they're not protected the right way, and we have to replace all of those. We got to redo some of the wiring in your house. Your house is not up to code, which again blew my mind. I'm thinking this house got built 4 years ago. What? And he's like, it's not up to code. And so to fix all of that stuff, it's going to be about $5,000. And by the way, this guy was here for 3 hours, just being as exhaustive as possible. So like I said, I'm aghast by this. I'm just like, this is insane. And eventually tell this guy, we're probably not interested. And he's like, are you sure? Because again, you're in real danger if you don't repair these things. Like there's been instances where people's houses have burned down. And, I basically said something to the effect of, I see you have young children. And at that point, I'm just like, what is going on? Like, what's this guy doing? And I'm like, politely, I'm like, hey, we'll get back to you. See you later. So get a different electrician. This guy, which by the way, the previous company, let me just pull this up again here. Let's see here. I'm just curious. Okay. Okay, here we go. This company this was wild about this. This company has 2,000, like, how many of these are actually 5-star? This is kind of crazy. This company has 2,100, over 2,000 reviews, an average 4.8 score. Pretty crazy. Which, come to think of it, before this guy left, before this person came, the guy came to my house, looked at all the stuff. Before he left, he did say, hey, would you be willing to leave a 5-star review for your service today? Even though, the dishwasher's still broken. So I don't know what's going on there with the reviews, but all this to say, another guy comes out, and this guy is a master electrician. He has basically no social media presence. He has pretty much I don't even know if he had like a Google business profile. This dude's like off the grid. This guy comes out and he's like, hey, it's, I think he said it was like $100 to look at it. And I was like, all right, yep. So he comes out, looks at it, looks under the dishwasher, pops out this fried wire and says, yeah, this wire melted. It shorted the dishwasher. I think I have something in my truck. Goes back to his truck, gets out another spool of wire. And I don't even know what this guy does. Literally like 15 minutes later, it's all fixed, turns on the dishwasher, runs perfectly. And I'm like, wow, how much do I owe you? And he was like, you're good, man. Don't worry about it. I'm just stunned. I'm stunned. And I even show him the quote. I'm like, you're going to charge me $100 or $120 for the service call. This other company came out and they wanted me to pay $5,000. And I'm thinking, like, what's going on here? This is crazy. And the guy's like, yeah, was it so-and-so? And he knew exactly what company it was. And I said, yeah, it was that company. So with that, I'm like, what do you think about them? Like, what do you know about them? And he's like, well, without getting too in the weeds, I know that that company used to be a different company, and the owner had to change the name because of some sketchy things that had happened. But we're talking more about it, and he goes, let me guess, the electrician told you your house might burn down. And I was like, yes, that's exactly what he told us. And he was like, yep. He said, I just replaced the circuit box, the breaker box of an old lady elsewhere in Fayetteville, and she was in tears because the same company had quoted her thousands of dollars and to replace the breaker box, and was like, if you don't do this, your house is going to burn down. And somehow got a hold of me, and I was like, relax, your house is not going to burn down. It's going to be okay. What have you. Anyway, so I posted about this on Facebook, and the post just took off. I think people out there really resonated with this whole, like, just getting scammed from, and I'm not calling it a scam, but it does feel like getting scammed in these kinds of situations. And I didn't really think I was going to encounter something like this again anytime soon. So flash forward a couple years later, my car, it's a, I've had this car for about 15 years. It's an SUV, and it's the first car I ever owned. It's got sentimental value. I like this car. It's just a special car. You could think back to maybe your first vehicle, and I've driven this car for, like I said, 15 years, and I'm going to drive it till the wheels fall off. Like, I love this car. Well, the ignition was sticking a little bit, and it was one of those things like, this is so obnoxious because, like, my poor wife had to suffer under this for way too long. But a few years ago, we noticed that it wouldn't turn on the first crank. Like you turn the key and it doesn't turn on right away. And you had to do it like a few times. Well, over the years, it's gotten a little bit worse. And now, like I can turn it on almost immediately, but you gotta work a little bit, And I was like, my wife actually got stranded in Bentonville with my kids because she couldn't turn the car on, and I had to drive up there and help her out. And like, I was trying to explain it to her over the phone, and I could just tell she was just like, if you tell me one more time, did I do it right? Yes, I'm doing it exactly the way you told me to do it. I drive up there, I hop in the driver's seat, boom, turn this car on. And she's like, are you kidding me? So, but it's just like this finicky thing where like you have to like push the key in as you're turning and then it works and what have you. Anyway, it had gotten to the point that it gotten really annoying. And like, I think it was like later that day or maybe like the next day in the evening, she was going to a friend's house and she took that car and because it had the baby seat in it and we have the baby. And she calls me late that night and she's like, I can't start the car again. And I'm like, dang, that's a bummer. And I'm like, well, let me come get you again. And she's like, well, no. So my friend's husband's going to drive me home, which he does. Great guy, drives her home, very generous of his time. Well, as he's like handing the baby carrier off to me and because he had put it in his car and we had left my car at his house, he's like, hey, yeah, I noticed. Do you think maybe like it's your ignition housing? And I'm like, I don't know. Maybe it is. So all this to say, I'm like, okay, we've probably gotten to the point where, my wife's had a tough time twice in 1 week. It's probably not convenient if she's not able to drive this car. So let me take it to the dealership, which, there's been a couple other places that we could. And by the way, in the future, I'm just going to say this, in the future, I will probably always take everything like car related to Grease Pig off MLK. Hopefully people out there like, in fact, maybe I should Google these guys real quick. Because if these guys have like a 1-star average, maybe that wouldn't be the best recommendation for me to make. Let's see here real quick. Okay, yeah. I mean, 4.6, almost 600 reviews. All I'm going to say is I've had nothing but great experiences with these guys. They've done a great job. They've always been incredibly kind, very professional, and have always just, like I said, done a great job. So for the future, I don't even know if they would do this kind of repair, but I will always take my car there first just to see what they could do. They do a great job. Anyway, went to the dealership and I pull up and I'm like, hey, and I'll give you the short story up front and then I'll get more into the details. But the short story is I basically had another $5,000 wire situation. I get there. The guy's like, hey, what's going on? And I'm like, yeah, it's kind of finicky to get the startup on it. I think it might be the ignition housing. And the guy's like, kind of gives me like hands up, like, yeah, we, not in a rude way, but just kind of like, we know exactly what you're talking about. He's like, you don't have to be long-winded. Like we know this problem. We're familiar with it. Like basically says something to the effect of like, oh yeah, we can handle this kind of thing. Not a big deal. And I'm like, okay, great, cool. Well, so like, when can you guys look at it? And he's like, we're going to look at it tomorrow morning, and it's going to be $195 plus tax to even look at it, to diagnose it, which I didn't necessarily have a problem with. I was like, you know what? It's their time. They're going to be checking everything. I don't really have an issue with that. And I said, okay, sounds good. Even though $195 plus tax, I'm like, okay, yeah, that's a little more than I thought it might be, but you know what? I get it. Well, first red flag. And if you indulge me a little bit on this story, I'm gonna talk about you and your business and what you're selling and what you can learn from these horrible, horrible experiences. First red flag, it is an old car. It's a 15-year-old car. And the trunk latch is not always great. Sometimes it doesn't always pop open when you push the button. And I had looked at it. It had looked like it wasn't quite clicking. And so I just figured, you know what? It's probably got to get swapped out, which I also knew was like a very cheap part. So I'm like, hey, by the way, while you guys have my car, can you replace the trunk latch? And the guy goes, oh, well, what's going on with the trunk latch? And I said, yeah, it's just worn down. I just need it swapped out. And he goes, oh, well, we can't, we can't even look at the trunk latch without diagnosing it, which I'm like, what's there to diagnose? I just told you what's wrong with it. And I'm like, okay. And he goes, so that would be another $195 plus tax. And I'm like, dude, for real? You need another $200 to look at the trunk latch, not even to fix it. And then I'm like, all right, how about pass on that? Hey, I do need the front passenger light replaced too. And he's kind of like, yeah, we might be able to. And I'm just like, you know what? Let's just focus on the ignition housing. You know, let's just do the simple stuff, and then I'll take care of the rest. Not a big deal. But this is the first red flag. I'm like, we're already like going like, and you know what? I don't feel like anything I've said has been like insane. Like sometimes you have a customer who's a little bit nervy and they ask you to throw something in and you're like, dude, I don't know about that. What you just asked me was you were pretty confident in that ask. You know, I think about when I was working at a restaurant, I'm working at Chewy's, and someone would say, hey, is there any chance you could throw in the queso for free? And he'd be like, man, I don't know about that. I don't know if I can throw in a free queso, but maybe I can. I don't know. It doesn't hurt to ask. And so like, I get it. I get why people do it sometimes, but still I was like, okay, you know what? Let's keep it simple. Not a big deal. So I say, yep, just focus on the ignition housing, focus on the startup issue. And I'm also the kind of guy, I try to make things as easy as possible for people. So I'm like, hey, do you want me to move the car into your bay? Do you mean to move the car? Because I just parked it out front. I was like, do you mean to move it for you? And he's like, nope, we're good. Like, don't even worry about it. I'm like, all right, cool. So he says, tomorrow morning, we'll look at it. We'll tell you for sure if what's going on. I'm like, no big deal. Well, the next day comes and goes. I don't hear anything. And I'm thinking, okay, what's going on? But you know what? Maybe people get busy. But so I send a message and I'm like, hey, just checking on the car. No big deal if you're busy, what have you. And they're like, yep, we don't know what's wrong with it yet. I'm like, okay, cool. Another day goes by. We don't know what's wrong with it. Another day goes by. And they're like, hey, yeah, we're having another guy to look at it. We're still trying to figure it out. And I'm thinking like, man, this is like a really, this must be like a really difficult issue here. Like, this is really strange. In the meantime, I'm just like curious. I'm like, I'm like that worst kind of person, I guess. I'm like Googling about it. I'm reading a lot of posts and comments about how the ignition housing, this is a extremely common issue on this type of car that, it just happens often after this many years. And I'm like, okay, cool. So I think they're gonna, if it's not this, it must be something really bad. So finally we get towards the end of the week and I'm just like, what's going on? Like, what's the deal? And they're like, hey, we're going to have an answer to you before the weekend, which they didn't. No answer, no message, no follow-up, what have you. Well, finally we get to the next week. It's Monday. It's been a week now. And I'm like, dude, I think I'm going to have to take my car somewhere else. And this is what I say to them. I'm just like, I think I got to go somewhere else. Like, I think I said, like, I have a work trip coming up. Like, it's the holidays. I need the car. I need my car back. It's just, I need it. So I think I'll probably just come pick it up. And he's like, oh, well, hang on. I think it's just weird how it went. It was just like, oh, well, we're looking at it. We're going to get it figured out. And I'm like, all right, well, I'm just saying I'm probably going to pick it up. And again, I'm trying to be as firm but polite. I'm like, yep, I get it. This stuff is, kind of complicated. Not a big deal. Well, finally, I get a phone call. I think this was on Tuesday morning, maybe, or maybe Monday afternoon. And they're like, hey, yeah, we figured it out. It's the ignition housing, which I'm kind of like, interesting. That's exactly what we talked about at the start of the week, but no big deal. Maybe you were just checking all your bases. So they're like, hey, it's the ignition housing. We do need to replace it. And I'm kind of thinking, like, I've also looked up the part online. I have found the part, by the way, on Amazon for $40. Very cheap part, very easy fix. And I'm thinking, okay, dealership prices, maybe they're going to quote me like maybe $600 to $800, something like that. It's kind of what I'm expecting. So with the diagnostic fee, I'm thinking maybe I'll have spent $800 to $1,000. So he comes back to me and he says, yeah, to replace it, it's going to be $1,900 and change plus tax altogether with the diagnostic fee. Almost $2,500. And I'm thinking, what? What in the world? Again, in the meantime, I have checked on this price. It's on Amazon for $40. I'm reading comments about it. I've read comments about people saying this is an easy fix. You can swap this out in half an hour. So, excuse me. So what I'm thinking is, maybe an hour of their time. I mean, I don't know. I don't know how things work behind the scenes at a car dealership. What do I know? Just some random dude. But I had the idea of maybe what I thought it would cost. So he comes back and says, basically, you're going to pay $2,500 to replace this. And I balk at the price. Again, I'm very polite. I'm just like, yeah, man, I can't do that. The car, it's a 15-year car. It's got like 280,000 miles on it. I mean, dude, this car is worth maybe $400, $500. And he's like, okay, well, tell you what, we would buy it from you for that price. We're willing to waive the diagnostic fee and pay around $400 for it, which I'm like, what? Okay, now what's going on? This is weird. This is strange. And I'm just like, you know what? I don't even know how to change my own oil. Like, seriously, maybe that's just a sin against manhood. I don't know. You can have my man card. I've just never had to do it. Never had to do it. Don't know how to do it. I don't know how to change my oil. That's just, if that's the worst part about me, I'm okay with it. But I'm like, you know what? I don't really know my way around a car, but I bet I could figure this out. Or I could at least, you know what? If I ruin something, it's an old car anyway. We got another one. It's probably not the worst thing in the world. So I say, you know what? And the thing that the guy said, he goes, hey, yeah, we'll buy it from you for $400. Because if not, man, we're going to have to like put it all back together, which I'm thinking like, is my car like on the pavement, like in a bunch of parts? Like, I'm just like, what's going on here? But I was like, you know what? I'm just going to come pick it up tomorrow morning. So I come pick it up in the morning and they're like, are you going to tow it out of here? And I'm like, I think I'm just going to drive it. And they're like, well, no, you can't drive it. It doesn't work. And I'm like, pretty sure it works. Jump in the car seat, turn the key, turns on, drive right out of there. So why did I just indulge you in story? Oh, and by the way, I did order that part. It was $40 on Amazon. I got it. Found a YouTube video. I posted about this on social media the other day. Found a YouTube video. Talked about how to do it in 30 minutes. It took me an hour. Because again, you know what? I'm slow. I'm slow with this stuff. I've never messed with any of this stuff before. So it took me an hour. And literally no more than that. Swapped it out. I was amazed. My wife was amazed. She came out. You know what I did? The first thing I did, I put her in that car seat. I said, hey, turn the key. Indulge yourself. Just go for a ride on the amazing experience of turning the key one time and seeing. And sure, I mean, she was gleeful. She was like, this is incredible. I love this. And while I was at it, I was like, you know what? This trunk latch, what's this going to set me back? $30 on Amazon, 15 minutes to swap it out. And by the way, incredibly easy. If you ever need help with this kind of stuff, I feel like I'm an expert at this kind of stuff now. So altogether, $70, an hour and 15 minutes. Oh, and the headlight, another 15, I think it was maybe $20 actually off Amazon. And that also took about 15 minutes. So in an hour and a half, my 3 issues were resolved. Oh, and one other thing that really annoyed me. Whenever I went to pick up my car, he said, yeah, the total is $245.80, which I'm doing the math in my head. And I'm like, that's not $195 plus tax. That's got to be like, what, like $220? So I'm thinking like, you guys overcharged me on the diagnostic too. Maybe because you had it for so long. I don't know. So I was pretty miffed about this, pretty annoyed about it. I did leave my one. I went to my Tuesday morning meetup and talked about it a little bit. And I was like, man, I'm kind of feeling a 1-star review. I don't give these out quickly. Like I really, because, local businesses, I'm a big fan of local businesses. I want to support local businesses. I said, but I'm feeling kind of raw about it. Like we were kind of just joking about it. And I was like, I might be working up to one. I'm not sure. And then someone who was sitting by me was like, I mean, if you really had a bad experience, you should probably let people know about it. So eventually I, cracked open the Google review page and, wrote out my experience and probably gave way too much information. I think most people just, with a 1-star review, they just say, I hate it here. And that's it. But anyway, why do I tell this story? It's because in a time when every dollar counts. Like, think about this. The news is bombarding us daily with the price of things, grocery prices, inflation, who's to blame, yada, yada. What does this mean for small business? Like, we are literally covered up every second of the day about the price of things. And I think that this also really gets people thinking about value and the dollars they're spending. It's gotten people thinking about, like, am I spending my money in the right place? And what this means for the average business owner is that you better be crystal clear on the offer of what you sell. You better be crystal clear on the value behind your service or product. This isn't an episode about pricing high, by the way. This isn't an episode about, hey, you better be cheap. Like, understand something. If they had come back to me and they had said, hey, here's the deal. Excuse me. If they had come back to me and they said, hey, here's the deal. We can do this for X amount of dollars. It'd be a cheaper part. It'd be a quicker fix. And it's going to run you however many $100. Or we could do the more expensive. I mean, actually, this is just kind of a silly example because there's no world I think this ever costs $2,200 or $2,500. But I will say, I do have this conversation with my customers where we talk about pricing. And we usually, by the way, talk about pricing from the get-go. We talk about pricing from almost the first touch point of the conversation where, when someone reaches out to me for like marketing or what have you, or like podcasting, the price is almost always mentioned immediately. Because I typically say, hey, this is what this costs. This is the price of this thing. Does that align with your budget or does it not? And I actually just gave this advice to a business owner yesterday. She reached out. She said, hey, I'm having a hard time with pricing. I had someone who told me my prices were too high. And I said, well, you might try starting with price to really make sure, like, is this the right person who wants to buy from you? Because there is no shortage of people who want a crazy discount or a crazy deal or things that just aren't profitable for you. And you are running a business, so you gotta run a business that actually makes sense for your time investment. But in this case, there's no situation where I think the $2,500 price tag makes sense. But here's what I think you can be mindful of when it comes to selling in your business. The value absolutely has to be tangible. It has to be there. I'm amazed at the lack of integrity in business owners today. I'm amazed at the lack of conscience and accountability. I talked to a guy earlier this year who runs a lumber company. Lumber mill. He sells a lumber yard there. Kind of like a Home Depot or a Lowe's, but like a local version of that. And we were talking about his marketing, and dude's spending hundreds of dollars every month. And we went through the list of the perks, what he was actually getting. Dude is getting nothing. He's basically spending hundreds of dollars per month on hosting, on web hosting. And the worst part about it was the company that built his website, when he told them that he was going to leave, they told him that they were going to take back the website, which is insane. And I thought this never happened until I talked to another friend in my industry in the marketing world who said, oh yeah, that's like the lowest of the low. He was basically like, I have known of companies doing that. In fact, I have a client right now. Excuse me. I have a client right now who left his previous company and they took his website down, and then he ended up suing them, and it was this huge court deal. But apparently this happens. But point being, the fact that a company would feel comfortable charging hundreds of dollars for nothing blows my mind. And ultimately, if you're trying to make a quick buck, this podcast is probably not for you. We just don't talk about that kind of stuff on the show. Because I'll tell you, there's lots of ways that you can make lots of money And you can do that by obfuscating what it is you really do. You can do that by, man, I'm even thinking of some examples locally that I don't want to bring up because I don't want to slam. I'm trying not to take out, I'm trying not to speak ill of local people because, we're all hustling out here. We're all working hard. But I think some people think hustling, they don't realize that when I say hustling, I mean working hard. And what they mean is being very clever about what they sell and how they sell it and, preying on people who don't know as much as the average buyer might. It's like the old lady who got told that her house was going to burn down if she didn't spend the $6,000 on the new breaker box. It's like the guy who told my wife, as she's standing in front of her 2 children, that if you don't spend the $5,000 to replace your dishwasher and wiring, your house might burn down. Like, these people prey on the lack of knowledge. And I mean, heck, you go to a dealership and someone says, yeah, I mean, it's the ignition. I mean, when's the last time you even looked up what an ignition housing is, other than the fact that it sounds important? And so you go to a dealership and they say, oh yeah, it's going to be $1,900 plus tax, plus the $230, or in my case, the almost $250 that you already spent on the diagnostic. It's a $2,500 repair. It's a big deal. And the average person doesn't know that, hey, for $40 and 30 minutes of your time, for an hour of your time, you can do this yourself. And it's really not that complicated. Like, again, as someone who's never even changed his own oil, it was incredibly simple. This is a real soapbox for me. And it's hard to talk about in the sense of, like, it's hard to explain this in a way that isn't like overly nuanced, because I don't want people to hear this episode and like go from ditch to ditch. Like, again, we're not talking about cheap prices, and we're also not talking about like lumping everything in or like throwing out lots. Like, I was just talking, it's hard. Like, and I might just not be smart enough to like really know how to communicate this. But a good way to think of this was, I was talking about the book Unreasonable Hospitality. I think I mentioned it in my last episode, but I was in a conversation with someone about this last week, and we were talking about like wowing customers. And we were talking about like ways you can wow customers and create like a truly meaningful experience. And the guy was like, yeah, like throwing in like perks, right? And I was like, it's not really that. Like, we're not talking about like, oh, but for you, I'll do this complimentary. I'll add in this extra, like just as a one-time bonus, I'll give you like a little bit extra. Like, there are times where I do that, by the way, just because it's so insignificant to me. Like, I had somebody who I realized we were hosting their website. They get no traffic to this website, but we also host a few other of their websites. And it was like, hey, like we're hosting this for you, or rather, excuse me, you're hosting this for us. Like, what do I owe you? And I was like, dude, you know what? If you'll just pay the cost to host it, like, I'm not worried about it, which is what he ended up doing. So like, it's not about, excuse me, my throat is scratchy today. Excuse me. I was like, it's not about like having a real meaningful business is not about like the complimentary stuff, or like, I'll just throw this in because it's a one-time. It's not like that. It's about selling business in a way that is refreshing to people. Like, people have an experience with you, and even if they don't buy from you, they're like, man, I like how that person sells. I like what they stand for. I've been given this feedback, by the way. I had a guy who emailed me last year and said, hey, candidly, I'm never going to be your customer. I don't make enough money, or currently I'm not making enough money. I don't have the budget for it, but I just want you to know I appreciate the way you do business. Like, it's about doing business in a way that other people can look at and say, man, I like that. Like, there's something right about that. There's integrity in that. And I'll just tell you, the $40 part getting marked up to $2,500 doesn't feel like that. The $100 wire getting marked up to $5,000 doesn't feel like that. And I think people have realized that, man, we sure can just be clever, and we sure can be, a little questionable about how we do business. And it's going to make us a lot of money. And I'll be honest, it will make you a lot of money. And I've said this before on the show. I've said this before publicly, where I've said, man, if I didn't have a conscience, I would be so much wealthier than I am today. Because I spend, and the way I would sum it up really is I heard this guy had basically got caught scamming people. He was on a podcast. He had gotten caught scamming people. And in defending scamming people, he basically said, I mean, it's their money. If they're stupid about their money, like that's their issue. And for me, meanwhile, I'm talking to somebody who wants to spend, I mean, good gracious, I was on a phone call. I think I just told this story. I was on a phone call with a woman who had no money. She had no sales. Her business was floundering. She had literally made like $100 total. And I was like, are you really going to spend thousands of dollars to work with me? Like, are you sure that's like the best immediate investment of your dollar? Like, you might even, I was on a call with a guy a month ago about SEO, and he sells like it's a very niche apparel company. He sells like clothes that are for like a very specific situation. So it's like a small market, but he's doing really well with it. He's doing like 20K months with it. And he's like, I need SEO. And I was like, dude, honestly, man, like, I don't think I would spend money on SEO. The search traffic isn't really there. If I were you, I would double down. I would take that money and put it into more advertising. Like, it's working. It's generating some serious, like, that's where I would spend the money if I were you. And like, you know what? Maybe, I don't know if that makes me a loser, that makes me a sucker. I'm sure there are the Grant Cardone types out there who, would say I'm too much of a lamb. I'm not enough of a wolf. I don't know, which I have people come to Tuesday morning group who love Grant Cardone, so sorry that I, razzed on your hero or what have you, but I don't know. It's just not how I do business. It's not how I do business. And, it's just not how I think business should be done. I don't think it's how you do business the right way. And you know what? I'm not even looking to build a business that lasts for 100 years. I'm literally just building a business to feed my family and to give me the time to spend with my family. That also leaves a business better than I found it. That's it. That's it. There's nothing else to it. Nothing complicated. There's no legacy. I literally, if no one ever hears the name Good Advice 100 years from now, I do not give a rip. I do not care. Doesn't matter to me. I don't care about being remembered in that way. None of it matters to me. All I care about is that I made a positive impact on the people near me, and that my kids, that I really made an impact on my children. That's all I care about. So it feels like, though, along the way, there's just a right way to do business. How do you do business? Are you chasing the dollar? Are you cranking up prices knowing that the people buying are suckers? Again, don't mistake this. Don't be confused. Like, man, our main SEO package is like $14,000 a year. I'm not talking about cheap prices. I'm talking about transparent, where the value's there, where you're focused on delivering what you said you would. And if you're not doing those things, I think that should be a gut check. So, I hope this was helpful today. Maybe this was just an episode for me to vent about the crazy, insane price that had been put in front of me, but I don't know. Think about it. Let me know what you thought about today's episode. You can always email me, blake@goodadvicecoaching.com. And if you're a first-time listener, what the heck are you waiting on? Make sure you're subscribed to the podcast, you're following the show. And also remember, you can support the podcast on our Patreon, patreon.com/goodadvice. Hey, I wish you well. Hope you have a great week coming up. And that's today's Good Advice. We'll see you.